So things looked kind of bleak, but I had some advantages. I was free. I was still going out with Peggy. Peggy went to high school in North Miami, Carroll City. Carroll City High. People like Peggy. So her dad bought her a bar on 7th Avenue. The bar was kind of the last gasp of white culture in North Miami. Another young photographer, Sam Notarbartolo, was down the street, number 15. Sam let me assist him on some of his jobs, and that was a help. I used to see the models heading down to number 15, past number 10, and I think, well, they'll be coming here soon. So I went into business, then I went out of business. Dwayne gave me a job with this guy here. This is Greg Hunkley, and he was kind of a master builder as far as being a renovation expert. He taught me enough so I could begin my own project. I did this project, it took me a year. It was over on Kumquat. It was a 4-unit wreck, and I turned it into 2 flats. It's pretty nice. Now I could have some money to get together my studio. So the first thing I needed to do was to get all that stuff off the floor, out of the way, so I could have the big white room. You need a big white room if you're going to do photography because you got like 1 million light stands. So that took me about a year. So I constructed a pretty comfortable little spot. So this is it. So this is it, to quote. Yeah. So I had my white room. And most of this equipment, a lot of this equipment was homemade, but it worked perfectly. So now all I needed was some clients. Doing street photography, I had an interesting experience over at the Barnett Bank. They were building a tower over by my Barnett Bank. And I went there one day to get some money out, and I noticed one guy was like watching something interesting. So, what was he watching? He was watching a naked lady. So I had my camera, so underneath the fence I went and walked around. It was a beer party, it was an opening, it was called a tree topping ceremony. You need to focus as a photographer, and I hit upon the idea of using spring break as kind of a focus for my interest, because that was something that rolled around every year, something I could depend on, and it was something that was always interesting. A lot of youth, a lot of hijinks and nonsense. So I budgeted a certain amount of time for 7 years, starting in 1981 to 1988, to get over there and to do some photography. I don't know if I was completely faithful, but I generated a lot of good pictures. I really still needed to get on with my career. And that was going to be facilitated by some friends who were going to be able to help me out. Tia, who I'd done a composite for back in the Schiavone days, she introduced me to Bubbles, a designer, so I was able to put some new pictures together. My friend Adriana could help me with makeup and some styling, and my friend Mike Ward could help me as a photo assistant, carrying the cameras. On Speculation, this photo assignment for 2 magazine. Shot it at the Broward Fair. Now that's another thing I did. Marcelli got me a job for Jordan Marsh. Now this was a huge boost to my career, but I needed some cash right away to pay the rent. So this is Jess Anderson. He'd seen a test I had done, and he calls me up and he says, will you shoot comps for me? I'll give you $50 a comp. So I said, hey, that's great. I could do that. Jess had a talent agency operating out of a 2-bedroom apartment in Kendall. and he was very entrepreneurial. He went out and found people to be in his talent agency. So now I had some cash. This is Lynn Jefferson. I did some pictures with her and her roommate, Sharon Kreider. So I had some new pictures. This is Barbara Bowser and Marine Tedisco. I did a cover try over at one of Dwayne's properties because my AC was broken. That failed, but I went back to the books and started studying the work of the great photographers like Arthur Elgore, Rico Pullman. My stuff wasn't good enough. I had to make it better. So I studied, and sure enough, it got better, and I started to pick up some work. So I started to work for Editorial America, shooting covers and editorial stories. I shot, even though I did dozens of these editorial stories and covers, they really didn't make any money. The only way you can make money is to do shopping malls, department stores. Shout out to all the young models and makeup artists that made this work possible. It's really all about you. And I should say that my favorite model during this period was Sherry Bolts, who Sam sent me. This is Sherry. She was gorgeous. She's 16, perfect. So Jordan Marsh is still my big client. I did a photograph of Heidi Lane. Heidi was going to become very important to me because she was going to change my career trajectory. The Associated Society of Magazine Photographers, ASMP, decided to shoot a day in the life of Miami sometime in the late 80s. It was a popular theme back in the 80s. And I thought a great idea would be to photograph Heidi Lane, who had become a photographer.
Here in Miami, and Rosemary's been a model for like 2 days. She's brand spanking new. Chicago, Harlan, like all of them. So we're flying to most of them.
That Heidi Lane was actually a fantastic photographer. She was creating pictures of a very high level. She had, as an assistant, working with her that day, Danny Santiago. Here I am, I'm like in the weeds, making notes, doing my Polaroids, and she is like rushing forward, creating great pictures. It was a revelation for me, and a very unpleasant one. I realized I was going to have to change and find something else to do. So I thought about, with my street photography, maybe I could just go back to school. Maybe I could be a photography teacher or something. Maybe I could develop the street photography into some kind of fine art. I tried the book. Maybe there were some other things I could do with it that would be different, innovative. Now, I should say something about this picture, because this guy in the back was going to chase me down the street, and I guess he was going to try and beat me up. So there's some danger with street photography. You have to be careful. In fact, he chased me into the Marlin Beach Hotel. Now here is what all street photographers wait for, the magic moment when something really strange happens. These guys are going nuts because the bridge is up on Sunrise Boulevard and girls are flashing their boobies. My iMovie Spring Break goes into greater detail on the situation when the bridge was up on Sunrise Boulevard. Now my book, Religious Pics, which I'd finished around 84, 85, got me a show with Artifacts Gallery in 86. And that show introduced me to a whole set of people that Howard Davis had in his gallery. They were great subjects for photography. As luck would have it, after I did the photographs of them, I looked for some place to put the photographs. Serendipity, there was a need for photographs at the South Florida Magazine. So some of my photographs wound up in the magazine, and I had to shoot some more for them. So by chance, Will Ray up at the Palm Beach Arts Council asked me to do some photographs for him for the Palm Beach Cultural Quarterly, which started a whole round, which actually went on for years. I photographed dozens, maybe hundreds of artists all over South Florida. South Beach was in a transition between laughable, seedy retirement community and a hip, happening fashion photographer mecca. This was my next focus. So this lady and I were going to go on a long journey together. Who could be prettier, more talented, and who could be more fashionable than Marcelli? No one. Those are the frustrated words of her co-worker, Pat Gonzalez. So I was going to date Marcelli, the art director. And I was going to marry Marcelli, the beauty. She was going to be my third great love. Marcelli created the Target Man mask by hand drawing all over the contours of this plaster mask. Incredible. So I picked it up one day and I thought, wow, this is a cool picture. You might say, I'm the Target Man. Well, things are going to be tough between Marcelli and I. That's the way it just worked out. So you have life with a baby. You have life with a little boy. You have life with a boy. Soccer, his school, his homework, on and on. The Old Man on the Beach, that became my big success. I recycled that into a contest, and I'm the winner! So the Miami Herald's Tropic magazine came up with $500. That was pretty good money in 1992. That was better, actually, than I did with the government shows. There was one at the Resource Center, that's down in the big government building downtown, and there was another one over at the Concourse Gallery of the Miami International Airport. That's a good place because hundreds of thousands of people pass by. But the problem with both shows is that they never sent out any of the invitations. One thing that's essential for success in the arts at all is some kind of a support group. One that meets regularly and can show you some laughs. And that was the case with Bob's Poker Club. So what does cigarette packs have to do with anything? Somebody has to pay for the street photography. Every time I trip the shutter on my Nikon FM2, that costs me money. So somebody's got to pay for it. It's not self-supporting. To Kent Graphics, I worked for 10, 12 years. We did advertising specialties and cigarette packs for RJR Nabisco. Martinez and De La Paz, M&D. They're a little ad agency in Coconut Grove, and they were trying to get the Motorola account, Motorola phones. So I put something together for them. It worked. So we had the Motorola part of the Motorola account for a couple of years. So the last thing I did, which was very promising, and I finally got a shopping center. I did 3 books for Sawgrass Mills Mall. And oh geez, I'm rolling along pretty good here. Well, that came to an end after about a year. And so did my association with Editorial America. So now I don't have any fashion. Ouch! So that's when I decided to go back to FIU, Florida International University. When you're an assistant and you're 20-something, and most of the models are 20 or almost 20, 16's almost 20, right? Yeah, dating is inevitable in some cases. However, when you start to age out of those exciting 20s, it can be a little bit embarrassing. I've pictured a great many young women while I was a photographer over 30, and I can say none of the people pictured were victims of or beneficiaries of my trying to date them. Now, I should say something about photographing street people. Street people ask you for money, and I ask them for pictures, because they need the money and I need the pictures. Sometimes I can get some really good pictures, but it's an even deal, and I've never had any problem with street people.